Good evening, everyone. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, America's #1 dispatcher and freight broker training. Tonight, we're going to do a little Q&A to get some questions answered that you may have had that may not have been answered in the last training. We want to make sure that we cover all bases for you. So I open the floor, as always, to Q&A. And my screen did a weird thing there, but it's back. That's kind of weird. But hey, anyway. So I see we have some faces in here, some different faces and different names. Let's see, any hands, any questions? I see some hand raised. Got Barry, Angelia, of course, LaDonna as always, Jelani, Lana, Teresa M, Patricia, and Samsung SMA236U. Hopefully that's not on your birth certificate. But so questions. Where are you guys in your freight broker processes? Where are you in sourcing? Jelani, got your hand raised.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Charles. Again, been scouring your archive Zoom calls, and I know you talk about a lot of scenarios in which loads are rejected by the consignee. Is there a general rule of thumb? So let's say a load is rejected. Is there a general rule in terms of the workflow and what should happen at that point once the carrier says, hey, I got to the receiver and they rejected my load? I know there's probably a gazillion scenarios, but is there a general rule of thumb or how we should proceed at that point?
Great question. So as a freight broker, when your carrier that you have sourced the load to, one second. When your carrier who you brokered that load to gets to the consignee or the receiver, and the receiver rejects the load. So we're not going to get into why they rejected it. We're just going to get into it was rejected, right? It could have been damaged freight. It could have been the wrong shipment. It could have been a number of reasons, but they rejected the load. So it gets rejected typically back to the shipper. That means that it's going back to the shipper. The carrier did their job. So you as a broker, you owe that carrier for picking up that freight at the shipper location, transporting it to the consignee at the receiving location. That's what the carrier is getting paid for. That's what the rate con said. When a receiver rejects it at the receiving facility, that freight is rejected back to the shipper. So now the shipper has to decide, hey, have this carrier bring it back to us or get rid of it, or they can keep it or whatever, right? Or they'll probably either try to get rid of it to another carrier or send it somewhere else. Most of the time, it'll either come back to the shipper so that they can source it back out somewhere else. In that case, as a broker, the shipper is going to have to pay through you so that you can pay that carrier if that carrier wants to transport it from the receiver back to the shipper. Or it may be what's called a reconsignment. It may get rejected and then get reconsigned to another location. Okay. In both cases, the broker will still have to create another rate confirmation and give it to the carrier through getting the monies from the shipper, because carrier's not going to do it for free. They have to pay for their labor, fuel, and put it on their truck and hauling it and transporting it. So whether it's a reconsignment back to the shipper or a reconsignment to another location, in any case, the broker is involved by speaking to the shipper and saying, hey, what do you want to do? Your customer, who was the receiver, rejected this freight. What should we do? And again, it could go in specifics as the reason why it was rejected, damaged, wrong shipment, or whatever. If it's the wrong shipment, it's definitely coming back to the shipper, and they would have to pay the carrier for that. If it's a reconsignment, it got delivered to the wrong receiver, it needs to be reconsigned to the right location, still have to pay the carrier for that. So those are the standard scenarios in that regard. Okay.
So is that something you should put in your Raycon in terms of, I'm sure, experienced carriers maybe would know how to proceed, but is that something that in terms of, because I've ran through a lot of the scenarios in your calls in terms of, let's say one of them was a load that was infested with, or a crate, if you will, that had ants or something in it. So how is that something you should specify in terms of what the next step should be in the event that the load is rejected?
Well, no, because you can't anticipate rejected loads, or you can anticipate rejected loads, but you can't know the reason why it was rejected until it happens. So you can't put that in a current rate confirmation projecting future outcomes. It's a case-by-case basis. So you don't know, I should say your carrier don't know until they get to the receiver and they open that trailer, those trailer doors, and see the freight, and they decide whether they may not reject the whole truckload. They may reject a few pallets, except, let's say, standard 26 pallets of a full truckload truck. They take 18 of them, right, and reject the 8 of the pallets. So, so that could be the case as well. And those 8 may have to either get reconsigned or brought back to the shipper. So now they're only going to pay the shipper, the receiver is, for the pallets that they accepted, and then they're going to send the others back. The shipper still pays the carrier the full amount on that rate confirmation because they transported a full truckload. So it's a case-by-case basis. You can't anticipate that until it happens. Now, you could put certain general rules of thumb on the rate confirmation in the sense, or on the broker carrier agreement, where in the case of rejected freight, and this is between the broker and the carrier, in cases of rejected freight, contact the broker. And then, because the broker needs to talk to the shipper in order to decide what to do. This is the broker telling the carrier that in the broker carrier agreement, and maybe even a special note on the rate confirmation. This is what happens when if the consignee or the receiver rejects the freight. Give us a call us immediately, right? So we can tell you what to do, because the broker, is going to call your customer and let them know, hey, our driver is at this consignee and they're rejecting the freight for whatever reason. What shall we do? And then go from there.
Been doing a lot of studying on that in terms of, I understand that, one of the things that can happen, especially to a lot of new brokers, is to a shipper may try to get you or put you on the spot to quote a lane. So I've been waking up pretty much every morning and, practicing during the day, and I'll just pull up 1, 2, 3 load board and look at some loads without looking at the rate and try to quote it and add my margin based on that. The one thing I wanted you, with your expertise, Mr. Mundy Charles, is to provide some clarity. If if that trend lines, for instance, for flat beds is like 3.1 to $3.10 in the Midwest. If a load picks up there, but the receiver is in a different zone, which zone is utilized to quote the lane?
The starting point. It's always the starting. It's where you're starting out of. It's always where you're starting out of, where you're picking that load up from. So it's always the shipper location as your starting point, because the shipper location is where the carrier is actually loading their trailer to transport freight. So if it's higher in another zone, then if he gets a shipper in that zone, then it'll be the rate in that zone, that shipper in that zone. But it's where the carrier and where you, the broker, have a shipper location to broker freight for your carriers. That is where you start your quote or your bidding, right? And another resource, probably one of the best resources to do bids and lane quotes, is actually call carriers, the actual owner operators, and ask them about, hey, what would you run this lane for. Don't give them too much information because they can circumvent you and go around you. But say if you were to pull a flatbed load out of the Midwest, let's say Ohio, going to the Southeast Georgia, that's as broad as you can get, right? Coming out of Ohio, going to Georgia, what would you run that lane for a flatbed, for a truckload? And they'll tell you. Well, it's nowadays we're doing that for about, I don't know, 325, 350 a mile. So he's giving you some numbers to go with, some analytics. And then you just take that and run with it because you're getting it from a real carrier who's doing it in real time right now, right? So the question becomes, how do you even do that, right? Well, if you know that you're trying to quote a lane from a potential shipper that you're about to get and their location is wherever it's located, let's say Ohio, then you would search for carriers who are sourced or based in that area, in that general vicinity within a 100, 200 mile radius. And that's their domicile residence, their domicile state, and say, hey, you're over the road carrier. You have a flatbed equipment type. What would you run this lane out of Ohio down to the Southeast, let's say Georgia? What would you run that for a truckload? 44 to 48,000 pounds. What would you do that for? And then they'll tell you. Okay. Did that help?
No, that was huge. It helped a lot. I was able to secure factoring with Denim, which used to be Axle, I guess. And they have a free year with Ascend. And in one of your old calls, I think one of your experts, Mr. Mike, was talking about the fact that is a bit more accurate than in quoting lanes in Ascend. Is that pretty much accurate now that provides a better, a more accurate way to quote the lanes? I heard what you said about calling carriers as number one, and that's the preferred. But what's a next go-to? Is that much better than Ascend and the others?
So Ascend is a transportation management software. That is a load board. That can be and usually is in the premium version of Ascend. It is an integration in there along with other load boards. That is integrated into Ascend where you see, as a matter of fact, let's go to it. See if I have an old version of it. It's been a while since I've messed with Ascend. Go. So here's Ascend. I have an old version of one. So, and one of the load boards should be, so this is an old version of what I had. It's not premium. I think it's basic right here, basic plan. You can upgrade to the premium right there. But this is the basic plan. I'm surprised I'm still using it. So that is a load board. If you notice here on the screen, I'm using my cursor, my mouse, right? It is a sourcing tool that's integrated into this CRM or CMS. CRM, customer relationship management platform, fused with a CMS, content management platform, because that's literally what a TMS, transportation management software is. It fuses the features of a CRM and a CMS. CRM, again, is a customer relationship management platform, kind of like Salesforce and all these other CRMs, Oracle, NetSuite, things like that. And then a CMS, a content management system, which is like a database. So it is the infusion of the two. And if you notice, there are features in a TMS, transportation management. Now, there are many TMSs out here that you can consider. Load Pilot, Load Manager, Axis, Aljex, eFreight Solutions, Ascend. There's some that's integrated into load boards, like the DAT load boards have a broker TMS and integrated into their DAT. Now, you're going to pay a pretty penny for that monthly if you have the expense. Truck Stop has one called ITS, which is their TMS system. And then the largest one in the world and the most expensive of which, like 25,000 or so a month, is one called McLeod. That is correct.
Right.
So, but the features are pretty much the same. The reason why the prices are high because they add more variations of those features and more, I guess, specifics within the features. So, you can tell this is old. I got my old logo in here. But so we're on the dashboard. It tells you right here that they're integrated with that, and these other features they give you, and they give you 7-day and 15-day readouts of different things. Like, for example, the current fuel index or on highway or over the road diesel price. U.S. average is $5.14. That's today on average in the U.S., right? And that's down 13 cents from the previous week. That's how you read that, okay? And then the Ascend Quick Track stats, they do all those things and they tell you about the different cents per mile and all those other things. But they give you analytics, right? And right here, the current rate index, right here, National Van Spot Market Rate. So right now, the vans on the spot market load boards, right, are, and we're reading this, $2.44 line haul with a fuel surcharge. So a line haul with a fuel surcharge, another name for that is an all-in rate. That's right. That's what all-in means. All-in means it's the line haul rate. What is a line haul? A line haul is when your carrier that you're brokering to picks up a load from a shipper and line hauls it or transports it directly to a receiver, irregardless of the number of stops in between. It could be a straight through or what we call a one-in-one, or it can have multiple stops. But that's the line haul from shipper to receiver, however many stops. That's a line haul and whatever that rate is, okay? And then you include in that rate, they roll in a fuel surcharge, and it's so much per week. It may be 63 cents a week. It may be 50 cents per gallon a week. So you take, how do you figure out how much money that's being added? So let's say 34 cents. So you would take the cents that the fuel surcharge will pay, and you would multiply it by the distance that line hauler is running. Let's say 1,000 miles. So 1,000 miles times 34 cents a mile is $340. So they're paying out of that, let's say that load paid $4,300. Out of that $4,300 load, 340 of it is fuel. That's how you determine. So if you deduct the 320, if you deduct the 340 from that, then that'll tell you what the line haul rate is. You see the difference. You understand?
Sure.
So now the national van spot market rates, $2.44 line haul plus fuel surcharge, and that's down from last week by 3 cents. So last week if it's $2.44 now, how much was it last week?
$2.47.
$2.47, because you just simply add the 3 cents to it, right? So these are analytics that brokers need to know, right? Your refrigerated trailers or trucks and trailers, spot market rate, $2.86 line haul and fuel surcharge. That was down 5 cents. So obviously it was $2.91 last week, right? Because you added 5 cents to $2.86. So now it's $2.91. It was last week. National flatbed, and these are just the 3 major equipment types which they're focusing on. You can do other ones, but the ones that are moving the most, the bigger rigs, the one that gets you the most money, those are the ones that they're putting their most of their analytics towards. Okay.
Sure.
So the national flatbed spot market rates, $2.77 line haul and fuel surcharge. And that was down a penny from last week. So obviously it was $2.78 last week. So they're showing you the analytics and the fluctuations. And these are current trends. This is either since it was last week, that means it's running on a 7-day average, because a week is 7 days. Now, if it would have said 2 weeks, then you would say, well, this is on the last 15-day average, because 15 days in transportation is considered 2 weeks. And a week is 7 days. So, okay, so you follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a transportation management software. It has a load board integration in it, a connection, in other words. And it has these other features over here where you can build a loads, you can view loads that you already had built into your TMS system if you have one. You can search for loads that you already have in there. You may have done a load and then you want to search it to get some data out of it. You may have want to add to it or whatever. You can build a load. I've done it before in the class, build a load manually and things like that. But we also have what's called EDI. electronic data interchange, which is an electronic transfer of data instead of manually putting in the data from the shipper's load tenders manually into your TMS. It could be done electronically, but the two parties have to have an EDI connection.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
I know you and I talked about that. You and I, Mr. Nelson, talked about it on Friday. So since I do have this, if both parties have that EDI, would it minimize the likelihood that there'll be some error in terms of an omission in an accurate rate confirmation because it automatically populates from the EDI sent through the load tender for the shipper, if you understand what I'm saying? Maybe I asked the two.
I do, and no, it will not minimize the error because the EDI integration is only coming from your customer, the shipper, to your system for as far as the tenders are concerned. You still have to create the rate confirmation to give to your carriers. That's a different part. There's no EDI for that. You're just receiving the data electronically from your customer, the load tender, all the information about the load, the specifics, the rate, the weight, or the manifest itself to build a load. You still have to build a load in your system, either electronically or manually, and produce that rate confirmation. So there is still room for error there on your side, the broker. The EDI is just the electronic connection between your customer's load tender to your electronic system in order to produce that rate confirmation to sell to the carrier, minus your margin.
That EDI doesn't populate some of those fields?
It populates some of
the way that whether
any
data, tarps, et cetera.
Correct. Any data that came from the shipper through the load tender gets integrated and populated into the fields in your TMS. But there is other data that you still have to fill in, like special instructions or anything like that. There's certain fields, there's certain standard out-of-the-box fields that populate automatically through EDI integration. And then there are others that do not. That's where the error can be possible, in those fields that do not. Okay?
Appreciate it.
So as a broker, you would have to be mindful of that. Even though you have an expensive integration like EDI, you still have to be mindful of the specific in the specifics in the rate confirmation when you present it to the carrier, because the shipper don't know what you're going to tell the carrier specifically. The shipper just gave you the specific instructions. How you generate it and get it to the carrier, that's up to you. Right? Because remember, you are brokering their freight. Right?
Yes, sir.
So, okay, so you got that. Loads. Now they even added LTL orders, which is less than truckload. This is full truckloads, and this is LTLs, EDIs. You got your customers. Who are your customers? They're the shippers.
Shippers and carriers.
Right. Well, in this case, as far as the TMS is concerned, the transportation management is just the ship. Right. Okay. And then the assets are the trucks, whether they are networked into or onboarded to your brokerage, or unless you are an asset-based brokerage, those are the assets. And then the carriers are the trucking companies or the owner operators that you have onboarded to your company. So let's say, an asset can be a truck that's an asset part of your brokerage. You may have a brokerage and a trucking side, which makes you an asset-based brokerage. So you would put your trucks on your trucking side under your brokerage under assets. And then any other carriers that you onboarded who are not assets internally to your brokerage, you will put them under the carrier part of this TMS system. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, of course, everything else is kind of self-explanatory. All the locations of the shippers, where you're sourcing them from. They have a rate check tool, a rate mate, a SIN AccuRate now. They've added that rate view. So SIN has an internal AccuRate and an integration with that rate view.
And that's what I was asking, because I was playing with that earlier today. That a SIN AccuRate. Do you have any information on it in terms of where its accuracy is compared to that's best metric in terms of the most recent or most accurate way or rate in quoting particular lanes?
According to the dashboard, it's pulling data from the previous week. It's doing a 7-day as opposed to a 15-day average, and it's putting it in here. And I would argue that it's probably not as accurate as that. That is probably the most accurate. Now, where it's sourcing its data to put in there, I'm not quite sure. It could be from data, it could be from other resources, other analytical tools like trend lines, perhaps, which is another DAT tool. So then you have document management and reporting. As a business, you want to do reports because you want to check and see what's, print me a report of all the truck drivers who had accidents in the last month, or print me a report of this. And then you want to manage your documents, all the documents you receive from your carriers, your onboarded carriers. Let's say the carriers you onboarded, you got a copy of their, what do you normally get a copy of from your carriers? Their MC Authority, W-9, certificate of insurance, those things.
Yes.
That's document management. Is it not? Right? And then you have accounting. You want to account for everything. All the monies that's flowing through your brokerage, you can put the data into the TMS system and let that do the work for you. Okay? So, and then they have helps and tutorials and stuff. As a matter of fact, if you go into the settings, they should have some tutorials about how to utilize the software. Sure.
Last question, and it's sort of related. You talk about once you have a conversation with a shipper, and I think the step before they send you a load tender, when they're considering you, you talk about all the documents that you need to send them in your packet. I know, again, in studying all of the rich information you have in your back office Zoom trainings, initially, I know you talked a little bit about having a broker carrier agreement, but then I think you sort of went to the larger shippers not really looking at, adhering, or dealing with the broker shipper agreement that you send to them. What do you still recommend that it should be included in the packet, or no?
You always send it in the packet. They may or may not adhere to it. Most shippers, who especially the larger shippers, they're going to send you something for you to sign if you agree to what their tender is dictating for you to do. Okay. So if you can source them 40 trucks in a month, they'll send you their agreement to sign and along with the tender to accept that, as opposed to them signing your broker shipper agreement and what your requirements are. Because they need 40 trucks. They're moving at a fast pace. They don't have time to read your broker shipper agreement. Do you want to move our freight 40? Can you source 40 carriers if you're not asset-based? Can you source, if you're a 3PL, you're not asset-based, can you source 40 trucks in a month for us at this rate with these instructions? Yes or no? Because they're busy. They don't have time to go into grave detail. Now, if it was a mom and pop type of shipper, a farmer that produces produce and you have to ship it out every so often at the harvest time or whatever. But if it's a large productive company, multi-million dollars, a big campus of warehouses, a big warehouse of a shipping division and a receiving division, and they got to get trucks coming in all the time, and they've grown, they've scaled their company even more so, where they need another 40 assets capacity to keep pace with their scalability. They don't have time, and so put yourself in their position. They don't have time to literally read, whether it's or listen, whether on a phone call or read an email, your broker carrier agreement. They want to know, because they're trying to keep pace with their productivity. So they're saying, okay, well, this is what we need. Can you provide it? Yes or no? And this is I'm playing the role of a shipper, and talking to a broker, say, okay, look, I got your packet, and that's cool, but let me tell you what I need, and you tell me if you can do it or not, yes or no. Because I'm moving, and I don't even have time to talk to you right now, but I'm going to give you a chance because what you said to me was kind of interesting. So can you source me 40 assets, 40 trucks and trailers, dry van, swing door, air ride? The year of the trailers, I don't know, 2015, the tractor's got to be at least 2016, 2017, right? Because we want our equipment, we want our freight, our commodity to run in well maintenance type of equipment, right? We don't want any old. We don't want any old stuff. Now, this is a shipper talking, right? I need 40 assets, 40 truck and trailers, whether they're assets in your brokerage or if you can source them on your network, broker network. These are our instructions. We want truckloads. We want at least 40,000 pounds that we in those trucks, and we need the driver has to pass our qualifications for them to run our commodity, because this is In order for us to keep our premiums and our insurance down, we need these types of drivers. So here's our requirements here. This is a load tender. I'm sending this to you in emails, one page, accept or reject. That's simple. So if you get a shipper like that, you're going to be sweating bullets because you're like, damn, this is the first time I've heard this. Right? As opposed to those regular shippers that really got time to sit and have an hour conversation with you on the phone. That tells me that there's not much production going on in their facility.
Sure.
See? So, but you have to know how to react to that. You always say, yeah. Well, I don't say always say yeah, because you could say yeah to a 40 capacity shipper and you're not able to provide 40 trucks. So now you're going to look bad, right? But if the rates are good with that shipper, oh yeah, here, and by the way, that fast-paced shipper here, our rates are $5,000 per tender, 40 tenders. So what is that? 5 times 4, 5,000, 40 tender. What's that? 2 million or 200,000?
Something like that. Yeah.
200,000. Let me get my calculator out.
5 times 40,000 is 200,000.
Yeah, 5,000 times 40 trucks, 40 loads, 200,000. So 200,000 a month. Can you, Mr. Broker, handle making 200,000 a month? So now you're not gonna broker capital in the value. That's so when brokers say we've made 200,000 in the year or 200,000 in the month, they don't mean that they've made it. They mean that that's how much the tenders made. Their margin may have been 20% of that. Right. So when brokers tell you that, don't believe that's a lie. Right. So that's not what it means. So they may have made 40,000 in a month. So 20% of 200,000 is 40,000. They may have made 40,000, but their brokered for their shippers at those low tenders for 200,000. But their margin, because most of that money is going to the carriers, right?
Absolutely.
Correct. So that's how that works, right? So when you start hearing, if you hear anything other than that, you're being lied to. I'm just going to be honest. Okay. So, what was I? Oh, the tenders, right? So you get those 40 trucks at a $5,000 margin or $5,000 tender rate, the low tender itself. And it's going, let's say, 1,300 miles.
Right.
Full truckloads over the road, 1,300 miles. They're straight through shipments. This is how shippers will be talking to you. These are straight through Mr. Jabari. These are straight through shipments. You're like, what the heck is that? Straight through shipments. In other words, it's a one-and-one.
Right.
One pick, one drop. A straight through is just a one-and-one. It's just going from shipper to receiver. It's just straight through. And shipments is just the freight. It's a load. It's just called it a shipment, right? So, and that's what they mean. So you got 1,300 miles straight through, no extra stops, $5,000 a tender. So you figure, okay, so now you got a $5,000. So let's do some math. Let me bring my calculator out for you. Let's do some math here for this scenario. So is everybody okay with this example?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's do some math here because you started something, Jelani. So $5,000 tender from a shipper, right? So for you to determine what your margin is. So what is your margin as a broker? What do you think you should charge, especially if you're new and you're just penetrating the industry? You're just coming to the industry from the ground up. What is a good?
You and I had this conversation. Again, as someone's been in business for a number of years, I'm not trying to get it all up front. I'm trying to get my foot in the door and establish my reputation and build trust and earn the respect of others. So I'd say, 10 to 15%.
I'm glad you said that as a broker, because now that's a good preview to what I was going to add. So if you're going to do that, that means you come in at the lower end as possible so you can give more money to the carriers to motivate them to pick those loads up, satisfying the shipper in order for them to give you more loads. So a word for that is volume.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You want to generate volume over time. So if a shipper gives you 40, an assignment, a tender of 40 assets that he wants you to cover for 40 loads, in other words, 40 loads, I'll say 10 loads.
Sure.
He's saying, can you handle 40 loads? And you just got your shipper, your broker authority, and you just happen to stumble upon this mega shipper, mega distribution center, mega manufacturer, whatever they are, right? And they make widgets, thousands of widgets every month, but they want to ship out 40 of them a month. They ship out hundreds a month, but they're short 40 because all of their other assets and resources are covered. They got them covered. So they got 40 left. So and you just happen to call them on the day that they need it. So now all the stars aligned for you. So now all you got to do is just close the deal, right? And he's talking to you saying, hey, I got 40 shipments left. I need to get these things moved. All of my other ones are done. The $5,000 a shipment or a tender, flatbeds, dry vans. It's going over the road, 1,300, a straight through shipment. Can you handle it? And then you tell them whether you can or not. They shoot the tender over, you sign it. Once you sign that tender, now you are obligated to source 40 shipments. You got to find 40 dry vans, right? So now your question becomes, well, what are you giving it to the carrier for? And you're making your money. Because all you're doing is sitting at home and just exchanging numbers. You're just moving stuff around and making your money. That's basically what you're doing as a broker, right? But $5,000, right? The first thing you do, you check the lane and see what it's normally running for. 1,300 mile in a particular lane from, let's say it's going from Midwest to Southeast. Let's say Detroit, Michigan, down to Atlanta, Georgia, or whatever 1,300 miles is, right? And you call carriers coming out of the source location, the origin, right? The shipper location. And you say, hey, what would you normally run this for? Well, I'll do it for 42. Or I'll do it for, you take three different carriers in the source location, in the shipper location, and you take the average. I'll do it for 39. I'll do it for 43. I'll do it for 41. So what I would do, I would take 3,900 plus 4,300 plus 4,100. And I would take the average. So I would divide that by 3 because that's 3 instances, right? So it's 4,100. You got a $5,000 tender, right? So what is that called? Your tender is called, I had it wrote down here somewhere and I'm looking for it on my desk. Here we go. So your tender, wait, I'll hide on the sticky. So your tender is what the shipper pays. What in this example, what does the shipper pay?
4,100 or 5,000?
5,000. Okay.
Right.
And now you got shipper pay, you have a max payout, and then you have a target rate. So what is your target rate? So your target rate is what you want to pay it, and then the max rate is above that, what you're most willing to give up, and your cap, in other words.
Sure.
Your shipper rate, your shipper's paying 5,000. Your max payout is right here, and your target rate is right here, the lowest one. So now you got to decide what those numbers are. You already got the top number, what the shipper pays. 5,000. So is the 4,100, is that the max payout or is that the target rate?
That's what the carrier said they were running for.
So is that a target rate or is that the max payout that you're going to give?
That's the target rate. That's the target because that's what you came up with your research.
With the average, that's the target rate. So now what's the max payout you're willing to give? In other words, how much, because with the target rate, that means 41 and 5,000, that means you have a $900 profit, right? 41 from 5,000, that's your 900 profit. So now how much are you willing to dig into your profit margin to create a max payout or your cap?
What I've been doing when I've been working these lanes, these sample, I mean, just for myself every day is I multiply it by my margin. So if it's 15%, I multiply it by 0.15. If it's 20%, I multiply it by 0.2 and add it to the top of it to see where I want to be and to come in with it. Okay, so you're doing it another way. That's a great way, but someone said their max is 45. So they'll give an extra 400 to the carrier, and then they'll make a $500 profit off of a $5,000 load tender. Yes, sir. Right?
So I'm writing it down, 45, and then the target rate is max payout and shipper pay. So the 5,000 is the shipper pay. The target rate is the data that you got from the carrier, the average, what's paying that lane and coming out of that source area, that origin, right? Right. And then what's the max payout? In other words, when a carrier starts to negotiate with you, how much more are you willing to give and say, hey, that's I'm firm here. I can't go no more than that. And that's for somebody said 4,500. That's how that works. So you have to understand those three. You have what the shipper pays, which is the tender, because when you let's say you get a max pay a target rate and what the shipper pays, and you decided to do a max pay of $4,500, and you pay that to the carrier, when you invoice the shipper, what are you invoicing the shipper for?
5,000.
5,000 always, because that's what they're paying the tender. You always invoice the shipper for the tender amount, because that's what they owe you. It doesn't matter how much you pay the carrier, how much you're making. You're going to invoice your shipper or get paid through your factoring company if you have a factoring company for 5,000. And with the factoring company, they'll deal with going after the 5,000 for the shipper, and they'll give you an advance up to 90% of that tender. So they'll give you a 90% advance, like 4,500, right? And then they'll release the other 500 after the shipper pays them on their terms minus their percentage. But let's say there was no factoring company involved. Sure. You invoice the shipper for 5,000, and then you pay your carrier 4,500, and you keep the 500. So you got 40 of those, right? So 40 times 500 for that month, right? Remember, it's 40 loads a month. That's $20,000 in a month.
Right.
And that's one shipper.
Right.
Right? $20,000 a month times 12 months.
240,000
a year.
Right.
Right. But let's say 40 loads a month. There's 4 weeks in a month. So let's take 40 divided by 4.
10.
So that's 10 loads a week that you got to get.
Right.
So I'm trying to spread it out, see if you can handle moving 40 loads in a month. Do they want you got to ask the shipper, well, how often are you moving them? How many loads, how many shipments per week are we doing? I know it's 40 in a month. So can we balance it out, Mr. Shipper? Or do you need them all done at a certain, you need all 40 of your shipments moved out in this 1 week across that month? Or do you want them, you know what I'm saying? Because shipper's going to be like, okay, well, that's a great point. If you spread it out, you make your job a little bit easier, right?
Sure.
40 in a month, if you do 10 a week, you can say, I can. So if the shipper agrees to that, then they will have to schedule 10 shipments per each week to their customers. And their customer, has to agree to that to receive 10 shipments. I'm going to give you, Mr. Ship. Now, this is the shipper talking. I'm going to give you, Mr. Customer, receiver, your 40 shipments in the month, but I'm going to give them to you 10 shipments a week. Are you okay with that? If you're okay with that, Mr. Shipper, Mr. Customer, receiver, the shipper's customer is the receiver. If you're okay with that, I have a broker who can source 40 shipments to you over a month at 10 shipments a week. Sure, they're still going to pay you $5,000 to do that, right? And then you still invoice per shipment, I'm saying. And you still invoice. You see? So, but that's part of the process too, that you can look at on those lines. Remember, shipper pay, max payout, and target rate, right? Target rate starts with your analytical data that you get from truckers, from any tools that you use to find the rate that your starting point, if you will, right? And then you ask yourself, well, how high? What's the maximum I'm willing to give them? What's my cap? In other words, that's the max payout. What's my cap? And then, of course, all of that is below what the shipper pays, because if it's above the shipper pays, you're losing money. What's the point of being a broker, right? If your target rate and your max payout is above what the shipper pays, that makes no sense. Absolutely, right? So,
I did want to say the last thing, because I know 20 other people on the call, and I'm sure there's some other questions that how much I appreciate the information you have in your back office. Anything I do, especially at this point in my life, I'm going to do 120%. And I mean, if people want to shorten the learning curve and really learn the industry, you have everything that's there in your back office. Just a wonderful resource. So again, I've been, watching, listening to as many of your videos, because many of them have success stories and many of them have times where people bump their head. But again, I believe that you can learn a lot from what people are doing, what people are not doing. And Charles, I just appreciate you, because I know that what you have right here in your university, AKA Exodus LLC, is just it's a godsend. If you really want to quickly put yourself in a position to be able to be successful here. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I received that. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel the same way, Jelani. He's got a lot of information back there that if you focus on it, you can succeed. And I'm starting to learn that. I've got a quick question, piggybacking on that $5,000 load there.
Yes, sir.
Of that 5,000, how much of it are we giving up? And I won't say giving up because that's a bad word to use. But how much are we giving up to the factors, or because of course we got to consider that percentage that we're giving them as well. Is that correct?
Right. So it depends on what percentage they're charging you to factor those freight invoices that you're going to send to them in order to get the funds from them. So you have different types of factoring, recourse and non-recourse. Factoring percentages is anywhere between, based off of those types of factorings, between 1.5% to about 5%.
Okay.
Per the invoices.
Okay.
How it works is they will front you a certain advanced percentage. Let's say 90%. Like Seven Oaks, they'll give a 90%. Actually 95%. I think Seven Oaks does that now. Let me see. Yeah, 95% advance.
Yeah, it's 95.
Right? And then 2% in the first 45 days. So there's their numbers right there. So they give you 95. So let's go back to that 5,000. 95% of the 5,000. What is that? 9,750. So I believe that's what it is, times 95%. I'm sorry, 4,750, not 9,750, 4,750. Okay. So the other 250 is what's called in reserve, right, with the factoring company until the shipper pays according to the shipper's terms. Shipper pays in net 30, net 45, net 60 days because shippers don't care. Okay. Right? If you agree and accept this tender, not only are you going to get the money, but you're going to accept the terms that we're going to pay you under, our net terms. That's the give and take of shippers, right? They give you good money, but you have to wait on their terms if you don't have a factoring company, you get a good load and good terms and a good tender with a shipper. You're not going to get carriers because you don't have a way to give them, the carriers, their monies quickly. You don't have like same day or next day or some type of quick pay option if you're not using invoice factoring, right? Because carriers, truck drivers, trucking companies, fleets, they can't afford to wait the payment terms of the shipper. They have to keep moving. They have to keep putting fuel and paying for fuel to put in their trucks to run to their next load and so on and so forth. And they have other expenses, insurance, tires, maintenance, whatever, right? So factoring companies come in like that. So they'll give you the 95% advance, like in the case of Monica here at Seven Oaks. Okay. And they'll give the other reserve, and they'll release that reserve after the shipper pays their payment terms, and they're going to take their percentage out of the reserve if it's enough in there. That 2%. So 2% of what is that? 2% of $5,000 is what is that? $100. So per invoice,
$100.
Yeah, $100. Right.
Okay.
So that's not bad.
No, it's not. It's not. I wanted to, I'm really amazed at just listening to Jelani because he's doing something that I should do. I should just go ahead and get the Ascend software and start playing with it. Start putting numbers in there and just getting me a little bit closer to the fire and everything. So I'm going to do that. Now I actually signed up with Seven Oaks as well, and I don't even know, are they even on Ascends or do you know?
I would have to ask Monica. I'm not sure. Did you sign up through us? You let her know that you were an Exodus student, or?
No, I signed up like 7-8 months ago.
Okay, got it.
And I didn't think they were on Ascends then because I wanted to get Ascends and I heard that their softwares don't talk to each other, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if Seven Oaks. I don't know if Seven Oaks has a type of TMS integration with their factoring. Not
okay.
That we can ask Monica that. We can ask her that because she's in our Facebook group too, so we can throw a question out there to her in the Facebook group and see what she says. Because she puts content in there all the time and she answers questions in there all the time.
Okay. So, okay, that's good information. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
No problem. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? Q&A tonight. A hodgepodge of questions. Where you are as a broker? Have you applied for your authority? How do I set my infrastructure up? How do you apply for authority? What are the requirements? Any type of question as it relates to freight brokering? Any marketing that you can use as a freight broker? Like marketing your. I got. Yes, I heard some. Yes.
No, I'm just going to say that, and I'm sure probably everyone on the call knows this, but I think that it was really great because I was just approved my authority this week. But in scouring your videos, I want to say back in July or June, and then maybe May or April, you had 2 videos which pretty much went frame by frame for the UCR registration, because you know, you got my attention when you said if you mess up with that $300, you're gonna have to pay twice, you know. But you walk people through step by step, and that was really, really helpful in actually going ahead and registering through that process of actually filling out the OP1, which is the electronic form is UCR. Is that correct?
So the OP1 is the application for either a motor carrier or a broker of a property authority. That's the OP1 form. The UCR is a separate form. That's UCR.gov. That's the Unified Carrier Registration. Brokers are also required to do that, but you're 0 to 2 assets as a broker. But the OP1 form is the form that you fill out to apply for your broker authority to get your broker license. So, okay. But I did go step by step on the OP1 form online. You go to the fmcsa.dot.gov/registration website, and you fill out the URS. There's a URS system that you got to put your information in prior to starting the application for the authority. And then once you do that, then you start going through and filling out some general information, who you are, where you live, your domicile resident, and then you start answering questions like, what is your type? What is your authority type that you're going to apply for? Because there are different authority types. There are motor carrier authority types, and there's 4 of those. And then there are broker authority types, and there are 2 of those. So you would have to know which type of authority that you are applying for. Now, as brokers, obviously, you want to apply one of the 2 types of broker authorities, let me ask you guys, what are the 2 types of freight broker types of authorities that you apply for when you are applying and filling out the OP1 form on the FMCSA website? Do the Jeopardy music, the background music. Okay, someone said broker of property and household goods. That's correct. So one is a broker of property except household goods, and then one is broker of household goods. So now, what's the difference between the 2? Because you need to understand it as the broker, because you may make the wrong selection. You may choose the wrong one thinking it's the other, right? So what's the difference between a broker of property except household goods and a broker of household goods? It kind of tells you in the names, but okay. Janaya said one moves household goods and one does not. Okay, I'll accept that as an answer. And she's right. So a household goods freight broker just brokers to household goods customers and gets household goods carriers to move shipments out of people's homes. Like you have large moving companies. You may have seen them out here. An example of one is Covan, Atlas, Mayflower. These are large. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you so you won't show you what they are. Mayflower Moving Company. And hopefully it gives a picture of them. You got North American Van Lines, you got Mayflower. And let's see if it shows their trucks on the website. So I'm hoping to see one, the trucks. That's what here we go. Bam, right there. So I'm sure you've seen a truck like this plenty of times, right? Whether, right? These types of trucks. So you got one called Mayflower, North American Van Lines. What's the others? There's different of them. There's different of them. Plenty of them. So bed buggers, LaDonna said. So Atlas, Covan, Mayflower, North American Van Lines. These are the household goods types of carriers. They pull up in your down these little small streets, wherever you live at, with these large tractor trailers. Sometimes they open the side doors and they have a ramp that goes down where they can take the hand trucks, the dollies, in and out of the house to grab the furniture. And sometimes the two workers carry the couches and the refrigerators and stuff like that and put them in the trucks and make sure that they're secure. And you may have families moving across the country. You may have a father who got a job accepted in California and they live in Ohio. So they have to get that furniture from their house and they're moving. They sold their house in Ohio to move out to, I don't know, Antioch, California, right? He got a job in Silicon Valley, right? So one of these companies will be brokered to move your household goods from Columbus, Ohio to Antioch, California. Or another one, North American Van Lines or Atlas or Covan, right? That's what the broker of household goods are. Now, anything else, general freight, that falls under the other category of a freight broker, which is the broker of property, except household goods. The word except, or the phrase except household good in parentheses, is in parentheses. So those are the two types of categories under the type of authority as it relates to a freight broker. Then you have the motor carrier types of authority when you're filling out the OP1 form. The broker, a common carrier, contract carrier, passenger carrier, and household goods carrier. So this Mayflower truck, this is a household goods carrier that's being brokered to, freight to, by a household broker. And it's $300 per box. That's correct on the application. So if you check a motor carrier type of authority and a broker type of authority, in other words, you're thinking about being an asset base, which I don't recommend checking both of them on the same form. I recommend doing them separately. But if you do, that's your choice. Then that'll be 2 checks, $300 per check box. So that's $600, one time, non-refundable with the FMCSA. So any mistakes made, they'll come back and say the application was wrong. You have to go back and either correct it, or if you have to restart it, it's another $300. If you can correct it, they'll give you, you'll have a chance to save your money. Okay. So, all right. Any other questions? Where you guys are, different packet types. How do you invoice shippers? What do you send to the shippers? How do carriers, how do you deal with the carriers? How do you source the carriers? How do you source the shippers? Oh, speaking of which, freight broker, market your business. It involves, I'm reading some information. I have strategy and sales, prospecting, which is essential. Cold calling is good, but email is kind of getting better now because people don't like to take cold calls, the shippers, because they're busy. They'll be more willing to sit down at their computer or look at their phones while they're in the warehouses and look at emails. And if something catches their attention, then later on, they'll remember that. And then when they get to their desk, they'll go ahead and respond to the email. And that'll be like a warm lead for you, right? But cold calling is starting to plateau, if you will. You know, it was on an upward trajectory, depending on the season, but now it's starting to plateau right now. Okay. With you guys as brokers, you want to, when you do send an email or if you cold call, who are you? So explain who you are, what you can offer the customer, right? And what market or area of the country that you can service, right? You can cover. When you call them or email them, you should already know that, right? You should understand where they are, who you're targeting in based off of where you live. I usually advise new brokers to target shippers and manufacturers and distributors in their area, in their state, or in their region first, right? Because you want to make yourself as closely and readily available to them as possible, and then go all over the country, right? And also find some kind of niche too, as far as niche being what type of shipments, what type of commodities and the equipment types that they go on that you want to focus on, right? I don't recommend new brokers starting off with refrigerated goods because there's a lot of other things involved in that. Spoilage, claims, things of this nature that you would have to, it's going to bother your mind a little bit, right? Dealing with claims, dealing with USDA claims, or USDA coming in doing checking things out, because most shippers and receivers have their internal QA teams. They have a quality assurance teams to come and inspect the freight when there's claims involved. And then the USDA sometimes come in too, and as a third party independent resource to inspect it too, to make sure that, for example, if something wasn't, if some commodities were not pulped, right? In other words, when you pulp freight, all you're doing is taking the temperature of it prior to it being loaded into a refrigerated trailer or a temperature controlled trailer, okay? If it wasn't pulped correctly at the loading or the origin, the shipper, when it gets to the destination, it may not be at the temperature that it should have been, even though you're running your temperature controlled unit along the way, because the initial pulp temperature wasn't up to what it should have been, so that the reefer can do, because all the reefer is designed to do is control and maintain the temperature, right? Temperature control, that's what it means. TCU, that's what that unit is for, right? So pulp the freight. So when you're dealing with reefer type of freight, like produce and cold storage type of freight, fish, chicken, things that's going to be like -10, -5, 0 degrees, those things run the risk of claims. And then other types of fruits and vegetables, you can look at strawberries for a minute and they're going to go bad, right? So these are sensitive types of commodities. So I recommend to brand new brokers to focus on general type of freight, maybe some dry van freight, some dry goods, and then next venture into flatbed type of freight like lumber and rebar and steel and pipes and things like that, and heavy or machinery, not heavy machinery, but machinery that can go on a flatbed. And then later on, if you want to venture into the refrigerated goods, now you can make the most money in the refrigerated goods, of course, but get your feet wet, at least with the process of brokering and understanding the whole workflow from the tender through the acceptance of the load and everything in between, claims or anything, right? So that's what I recommend. How are you able to assist a customer in their current needs or their current demands? How would you know that, right? You would have to research the customer, okay, and what their market is and where they're located. So someone says, if you are already using DAT for booking loads, is it easier to go with DAT, TMS, or Ascend? It depends, which is the most user-friendly one. So it depends, what is that, McRose LLC? It depends on the budget and the rate of those two TMSs. If you got a subscription to that includes TMS from a broker's perspective, then obviously you're winning because it's already rolled into the price. But if you got a DAT that does not have turned on their TMS feature and you have to turn it on for an added price to the subscription, then you would compare that added price against the monthly subscription of Ascend Premium and see which one is the difference and what features of that TMS or the difference in features of that TMS compared to Ascend's TMS, okay? But since you have that already, I would assume if you turn on that TMS feature with that, it's called Broker TMS, that they will have a team that will give you some tutorials on how to use it, right? So that would be my take on it. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop talking now and see if there's any more questions. My main point is I want to make sure that you guys understand that the pay part too, shipper pay, maximum payout, and target rate. That's important. You know what your target rate. Your target rate is what you're going to post on the load board to get the carriers to call you. And then your max payout is going to be that negotiated wiggle room that you and that carrier are going to be having while having that conversation while trying to book that load, right? Target rate is going to be the starting point. It's going to be posted. The carrier sees that, and it entices them to call you. But they're going to ask for more money. And you as a broker, you have more money. It's just how much of your more money are you willing to give up, which is your max payout. right? And then of course you have your your shipper pay at the top. So, but target rate is what you post on your load board, right? So, anything else? What's the best way to proceed? Asset-based broker or two separate LLCs? Two separate LLCs, one for your broker side and one for your trucking side, Randolph, because you're still considered an asset-based brokerage because you have a broker division. All you're doing, you have two separate LLCs, but all you're doing is brokering your shipper freight to your trucking or your trucking side's trucks. So you're getting commodities and shipments from the shippers on your broker side and putting them on the trucks that you have for those commodities. So let's say you got dry van. You started a freight brokerage and a trucking company with, let's say 10 trucks, 10 dry van trucks. Then obviously you want to target shippers that have freight that goes on your trailers, your dry van trailers, right? Well, it makes sense to target, if you're going to be asset-based, to target flatbed or reefer shippers because you don't have that equipment type starting out. And you can get those equipment types by onboarding those carriers to your brokerage, but why waste all that time if you already have 10 assets in dry vans that you can use right off the top? So you would target shippers that has freight, that commodities that go on the equipment that you have. Okay. When applying for your broker license, do you recommend applying for a carrier authority separately? I'm trying to ascertain whether or not to be a broker with asset or all being separate and apart from the various reasons I lost. Right, correct, separate. Insurance purposes, claims, lawsuits, all that stuff. You do it separately, but you're still considered asset-based because it's still your company. Let's say ABC Logistics, ABC Freight Brokerage, ABC Trucking or Transportation under ABC Logistics separately, right? And you get customers with your ABC brokerage to tender freight or broker freight from your brokerage to your ABC Transport or ABC Transportation or ABC Trucking's trucks, okay? Right? But you want to keep them separate. There's certain reasons for that, right? Insurance reasons, liability reasons, lawsuit reasons. Certain insurance companies won't even look at a brokerage if they see that they're asset. They have trucks and a trucking division and things like that because they're trying to make their money too. So there's certain things that you want to keep separate. They both can be LLCs, of course. So if you become asset-based, do you need a truck right away, or can you apply and then get a truck down the line like a month or so after? And would you need insurance for the MC to become active? You always need insurance for your MC to become active or a truck on the trucking side, if I'm understanding that part correctly. Asset-based means that you have assets to cover the need for your customers' freight. So if you're going to be asset-based, then you're going to need assets, right? So, but you can still have a separate brokerage and a trucking side. As far as the MC and insurance, your MC will not become active until you have an insurance, a policy filed with the FMCSA for your assets, for your trucks, for your trucking side, right? Because they need to file the type of policy you have with the FMCSA. They need to file the BMC 34 for cargo and the BMC 91 for liability, showing the FMCSA that your trucking company has met the requirements, the insurance requirements for cargo and liability. And the forms to show that with the FMCSA is the form BMC 34 for cargo and the form BMC 91 or 91X for liability. Okay. Tractor and trailer, right. So a tractor is an asset. A trailer is also an asset. Okay. You can put your tractor and trailer, your authority. So your asset base, when you get the motor carrier authority, you are a trucking company. the assets you put under there can be the tractor and the trailer. Okay. So fill out the 3 authorities. Fill out 3 authorities or 3 separate companies. No, 2, not 3. I was just giving an example of the umbrellas like ABC Logistics, ABC Brokerage, ABC Trucking. How much insurance do you need on a trailer? That is a great question, depending on the age of the trailer, because it's determined based off of the age of the trailer, the wear and tear, and how long it's going to last. Tires and things like that, the axle, what's the wear and tear on the trailer as far as how much weight can it pull, how old it is, and things like that. So, but the insurance on a trailer, now if you have a truck and trailer with your company, it's just cargo and liability. But if you're saying how much insurance you need on the trailer, as far as like if you're doing a trailer interchange with a power only at the loadout or a drop and hook and things like that, then that's a different beast. You need a trailer interchange agreement. You need a trailer interchange insurance coverage between 40 and 75,000. I think those are the last numbers for it. And as such, so so that's a different beast. Okay. Great questions. They're coming up in the chat. They're coming in. Right? Is asset-based a legal thing, or just tell shippers that you have some trucks on deck? So if you are an asset-based broker, you can leverage that with shippers, because you say, hey, I got my trucks to pull your shipments already. If you're non-asset based or 3PL, third party, you would have to onboard owner operators, which takes more time. You got to vet them. You got to make sure that their authority is good. They have good insurance, W-9, and all these other things. Their driving record, CSA scores, and all those other things. You have to onboard them to your brokerage in order. So onboarded carriers to your brokerage that you don't own, that you don't have the access to, they're technically asset-based, but they're network carriers because they're not yours. They're not part of your trucking company, but they're under your brokerage. They're onboarded or running under your brokerage. So they're technically asset-based, but they're not. Asset-based technically are your trucks and trailers under your trucking side, your trucking division, okay? What if I wanted to do drayage or port work hauling containers? Is that a different authority? It's the same. So you need an operating authority. So you would need to run the ports, Barry. You would need to have, there are certain certifications and credentials that you need, first of all. You need your power unit, which is part of that, needs your tractor itself. You need to still have an operating authority to transport freight, whether it's freight from the ports or general freight, okay? So, let's see. Drayage is short distance, right? You're running directly from the ports to a local retail store or distribution center. Okay, that is drayage or port work, and you're going into the ports. You need a facilities agreement to enter the ports, right? For your company or the driver, if you're the owner operator yourself. That is called a UIIA, right? Uniform Intermodal Interchange and Facilities Access Agreement. That's what that means, UIIA, okay? And you need to identify your truck and trailers with your company with letters and numbers called a SCAC code, SCAC, Standard Carrier Alpha Code. It's a mixture of, it's alphanumeric, right? It's 8, I think it's 8 digits, 4 letters and 4 numbers. SCAC, Standard Carrier Alpha Code. And the driver, if it's the owner operator or if it's a company driver under the trucking company that's going to enter the ports to pick up the containers with a chassis, has to have what's called a TWIC card, TWIC, Transportation Worker Identification Card. Those are the requirements. And in certain states, like the upstate New York or other states, require a what's called I think it's a Seagate or a C-Lip card, I think it is, up there as well. I think New York is one of them. So that's the port thing. With the port, you got to deal with different fees, container fees, storage fees, detention, demurrage. You have to deal with a chassis pool, getting a chassis. If you don't own your own chassis trailer, when you get into the port, you have to go to a chassis wait line, which is a chassis pool. grab a particular chassis, and those chassis can be one of the top 3 chassis. You have to make sure that your shipping line that you're pulling a container for uses, you got to make sure the chassis you pull is accepted by the shipping line that you're going to get the container from. That's a thing. You have to understand that. What are the chassis, right? You have DCLI, that's a chassis. You have Track Intermodal, that's a chassis company. And you have one called FlexiVan. Those are the top three chassis trailers that you got to put your container on, right? I used to run for a container port where I leased on my equipment. So yes, so with that, and you go into the port, you get the chassis, and then you do what's called end gating. You go to the location of the shipping line that you're going to get that container from. They may have already offloaded it from the vessel, the ship, with what's called a gantry crane, either onto the ground or directly onto your chassis trailer itself. If it's on the ground, then they will come with an equipment piece called the reach stacker and grab it and put it from the ground and put it on your chassis. So you got gantry cranes and reach stacker. Those are the 2 main equipment types on the ports, on the yard there. You want to secure it, right? And you want to, they're going to check it and everything too. And if there's anything that goes wrong in there, there's something called a trouble ticket that you have to address before you leave the port, right? And your paperwork has to match. So it's a different beast dealing with the port, right? There's different things. There's demurrage. There's delays in the port as well as prior to getting to the port, detention and demurrage, where you're leasing chassis, you're holding it longer than you need to. There's certain charges that can be accrued and over time that can add up. So you have to be mindful of all those things as well. So port work is different. It's the same, but it's a little bit more things involved. You're dealing with freight forwarders, you're dealing with customs broker, you're dealing with CBP, which is the Customs Border Patrol, because these containers they're being imported into our country internationally on vessels or on the rail cars. Rail cars bring in international freight too. What do I mean by that? Well, the trains the US borders 2 international countries, Canada and Mexico, right? So the railroads, right? So they come to the ports too. So you can get containers from rail cars offloaded, or you can get them from the vessels. Exactly. So Barry just sent us a picture, or sent me a picture of the of a yard, right? A power only unit. And so you got different ISO boxes types. So what Barry sent me looks like a 20. You got 20s, 40s, 45s, even 53 ISO boxes. So he just sent me a picture of his truck. Right. So let me download that and show it to you guys. Put them on and say Barry. And let's see if I got it. I'm gonna open it up. So hopefully this is some good information for you guys to hear as brokers that you may be sharing. So this is what I'm showing you now. If you can see it, can you see it? Yes. Okay. So this is Barry, Mr. Lewis's truck. So he pulled for a dredge company called, what is this, Container Port on the side? So you were a drayman. Barry was a drayman apparently. So, and this is a 20-foot ISO box, and you got all the numbers on here. You got your what is that called? The TARI weight and all that other stuff. TARI, TARE. So this is his unit. He has a Volvo. This is a 20-foot container on a 20-foot or 20, maybe a 30-foot, looks like, but 25-foot chassis. So the chassis is just a bare bone framed trailer that containers go on. That's all that is, right? So, and he pulled from the port. So he was easy. Now with trucking, you guys may not be aware of this. For those of you like me who drove trucks, it is harder to maneuver a smaller length trailer than it is a longer one. Yes or no? Right. The longer the trailer, like 53 foot, all you got to do is pull in a little bit and turn slightly and then just even it out and then just do a straight back. With those smaller ones, it's so small, you got to be like, oh my God, I'm doing offsets, pull-ups, straight backs several times, right? Because I'm playing with this thing. But the bigger ones, you're covering more space, so you can get in there like nice and then just pull right in. So Barry pulled for a dray. He was a drayman for a dredge company. A dredge, what dredge is dredge, D-R-A-Y-A-G-E. You're running short distances. You're running directly from the ports or the rail yards to a local distribution center or a retail store. Okay. So that's how that works. So brokering you would have to get connected with what's called an EP, an equipment provider, or a shipping line. What are those shipping lines? Like if you notice in this picture, China shipping, that's a shipping line. CMA, CGM, that's a shipping line. That's an EP, equipment provider, shipping line. Maersk, Costco, Hapag-Lloyd, these are shipping lines. You'll see them advertised on the side of the containers. Those are shipping lines. There are like 30 of the top 30 ones because they have the most what's called TEUs, okay? TEUs, those large containers, right? And the different types of containers and the different lengths of the containers. So Barry said he had 7 trucks was under my company that were released onto container. So what happened to you, Barry? Where's your trucks at? Barry said he had 7. I had 7 trucks that was under my company that were leased onto container. Oh, okay, you got sick. Okay. So you had to let it go. Understood, but you were running pretty good. So if you were to broker freight coming out of the ports, you would work with the different equipment providers, maybe custom brokers, CBP, Border Patrol, UIIA people, and what's called IANA, IANA, okay, which is the Intermodal Association of North America. So, pretty good number there, Barry. So yeah, so let me stop sharing that real quick and get back in here, see if you need any questions. But that's some information about intermodal going to the ports. There are certain requirements you have to meet to get into the ports and to get connected with intermodal. So, all right. Hopefully that was some good information. Was that good information, guys? Type a 1 in the chat if so. We log out of. But it's always good to have a network of information because you may venture off and sway in that direction of ports, or you may stay under the truckload area and deal mainly with the inland freight. So inland freight is just over the road freight. That's called inland, INLAND. The ports is what's called intermodal, which is intermodal is INTERMODAL. Intermodal is a different modes of transportation. You got multimodal and intermodal. Intermodal is when one shipment goes through different modes of transportation to get from source to destination. So like if you got an import or an export coming from overseas, China, it's either going to come in the air, a mode of transportation in air freight, or a mode of transportation over the sea. You can't drive a truck from China to the US, right? You can't rail a truck. Can't put it on a shipment from China on the railroad. It's impossible. The only 2 modes of transportation from China to the US is either air or sea. Once it hits one of the airports, right? Ports, air, that's where the word comes from, airports, right? You never thought about that way. So it comes in the airport or it comes in the sea port, right? It has to get processed by the Customs Border Patrol and the forwarders that dealt with when they did the booking to have it exported to come over here to the country to be imported. It comes in here, then it gets picked up by a dray, a local dray company perhaps, to take it to its last mile destination. Okay, that's how, but that's a one shipment from China to the US to that retail store or that distribution center for the freight to be distributed. That is a intermodal process because it had to go from one mode, either air or sea, hit the port, get processed in, and then get weighed on a truck and a chassis by another mode of transportation, which is truckload, right? That's what intermodal means, from going from one mode of transportation to another mode for one shipment. So any one shipment that comes international, imported or exported internationally and imported into the country, it has to definitely, there's no way around it. There's no way one shipment cannot come into this country internationally with just one mode of transportation. It has to be an intermodal process, whether it's a rail to truck, air to truck, sea to truck, pipeline to truck. You can move freight, you can move oil and stuff through the pipe. That's another mode of transportation, the pipelines, right? So, because oil comes to the air to be put into the tankers, you got hazmat or tanker trucks that gets loaded and they ship to their destinations too. So, okay. All right. That's a lot of information about the ports and intermodal. Hopefully that kind of clears some things up for you guys. But you may not broker to that. How do we connect with shippers for the ports? Look at the IANA website. Look at the UIIA website. IANA particularly, UIIA.org and IANA. Get information there. Look up the shipping lines and the EPs, which are the equipment providers. Equipment providers and shipping lines are pretty much the same people. Okay, for those of you who are familiar with the ports. And then UIIA.org and IANA.org, I think it is. IANA is Intermodal Association of North America. They can point you in the right direction. And there is a load board that deals with the ports as well. So, I forgot the name of the load board. It's on the tip of my tongue. That's crazy because it's always available. Load match. There it is. Load match. Woo! What is wrong with me? I'm getting old, guys. So load match. That is the load board for intermodal dredge trucking. Right here. Truck capacity, load availability, intermodal equipment. What is intermodal? So study intermodal directory, dray truckers by in-gate, by out-gate, truckers by state. So if you want to go into this, transportation equipment suppliers, as far as the chassis and things like that. So you have to understand how to navigate this equipment matching loads available that need power only and/or equipment. So you check the loads available. And then now you want to look, it's going to give you a listing of the major port cities, right? You got major ports over in the Houston area, Bayport. You got Louisiana down in the Panhandle. You hit Jacksonville, the tip of Florida, down to Port of Miami and Port of Everglades, and then go up to Savannah in Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina, Port of Virginia here where I'm at. Then you go to Port of Baltimore, New York, and New Jersey. That's on up the eastern seaboard. Then you go out to the Pacific, San Diego, Los Angeles, those areas over there, major ports over there. So, and you just look at the major ports where it's coming out of, and you have different types of ports. You got the seaports, and you also got the rails. Remember, you got the rail yards. There's major rails on the East Coast and the West Coast, right? You got NSF, Norfolk Southern, which they moved from Norfolk down to Atlanta. We have a major building still, the NSF building, Norfolk Southern. You got UP, Union Pacific. These are old rail lines. You got CSX. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of these. And then you have BNSF. Those used to be two companies, but they merged. Burlington Northern and Santa Fe out west, right? Burlington Northern merged with Santa Fe to become BNSF. You guys may have heard of these, right? So BNSF, UP, Union Pacific, CSX, and Norfolk Southern. Those are some of the major railroad or rail companies, okay? So hopefully this information is good for you guys. Port of Houston, So you can tell which ones are rails and which ones are, it'll say rails and stuff like that, or terminal in the in this. Right here's me, I'm Norfolk International, that's NIT. So we got an NIT and a PIT. We got Norfolk International Terminals and we got Portsmouth International Terminals. I'm literally down the street from the port. I can go there and get my phone and just record all day, park it on the side of the road and show you all these containers that are stacked at the ports at the PIT, literally. So, and that's how that works. So, all right. I think I spent enough time on intermodal. Would you agree? What are some shipper red flags or reasons a broker may want to steer clear of a shipper? Their payment terms, non-payment, low tender rates that are too low, below the average market. If you don't have enough wiggle room in a tender to make your money as well as pay the carrier a competitive market rate that normal lane would pay, then that would be a shipper that you would avoid dealing with, because you at least want to pay your carrier. Even if you made $50 to $100 a shipment, a load, if you give the carrier the majority of the money, you want to keep them moving that load, satisfying your shipper in order to get some volume from the shipper to continue to work. And even if that's I've seen brokers make between $50 and $100 just to keep the shippers and the carriers moving, giving them the money and satisfying the shipper in order to get volume freight. And then over 2 years, they went from 5 to 10 loads to 100 to 200 loads per month. Okay. Now you add that number up, 100 to 200 at $50, right? A month, 50 times 100, right? 5,000 or 200 times 50 to 100. So yeah. How to check shippers' ratings. So if you have a factory company, they do that for you. And in other ways, shippers' ratings, shippers have what's called Paydex ratings or Paydex scores, right? So you would take that and you would plug that data into the information through NAV or whatever Paydex you're using, right? And you have different business entity credit score checking institutions, right? TransCredit business, Ansonia business, and the popular one is DNB, Dun & Bradstreet, right? Those are the business side credit ratings and Paydex scores. Paydex scores 0 to 100. Your personal credit is 0 to 850. Your personal credit scores is what? Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Those are personal. That's nothing to do with the business side. Ansonia, TransCredit, and Dun & Bradstreet. I have a TransCredit login that we can look up a shipper. You put it in here and you type the name of the company and they give you their information. So we have a resource, right? This is an expensive resource and I have to use it. I'm paying for an expensive resource that I haven't gotten none of you to ask me to look up a shipper yet because you haven't gotten a shipper yet, right? So, but when you get a shipper and you're leery of them and if you get a shipper and you don't have a factory company and you're trying to decide to work with the shipper and you want to check their credit score and their rating to determine that, and you say, okay, well, Charles, can I use your TransCredit or can you look this shipper up? I'm going to look some information up about them. And then we just put their name in, boom, 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 and print out their rating. Okay, and you can view that. Okay, and you review it in report format. So, and this is my login, so I'm about to log out, but yeah. So, and that's one of the 3 business Paydex credit score credit checks. Remember, Ansonia, TransCredit, this one, and Dun & Bradstreet. Everybody knows about Dun & Bradstreet, right? But you may not have heard of the other 2, right? Ansonia and TransCredit. You may have vaguely heard of TransCredit, but you may not have heard of Ansonia. And to be perfectly honest, Ansonia is the best of the 3. Yes, Fischel, to answer the question, yes. The same as what we do for brokers on RTS Pro. Yes, correct. Yep. All right, guys, we're winding down. Any other questions or any questions for that matter? Broker's perspective. I think you're starting to get the basic concepts down because we go over it a lot. But once you want to get the meat and potatoes once you get a customer or do a rate quote or a lane bid. If they're asking you to, if they ask you that, they're testing you. They want to see what you know. They say, hey, I'm looking for a broker. I'm looking for a logistics provider or someone to manage my freight for me other than because my customer, I don't have customer routed freight. When they say our loads, if you call a shipper and they say, we don't deal with brokers because our loads, our shipments are customer routed. What that means is their receivers, their customers' facilities, they have their own trucks and they come and get their freight from the shippers. They're customer routed. So they come with their truck and trailers and grab it. They don't need a broker to get trucking companies. Either that or the shipper calls local trucking companies. The shipper calls local trucking companies to see if they can work with them directly. Right? If they can't meet those two qualifications, then they reach out to brokers and say, well, let me find a broker to do the work for me. I don't have a customer routed customer receiver, and I can't find a local trucking company to meet my capacity needs. Let me reach out to a broker and a freight broker to come in and do all the legwork for me. And I'll just give them the tender and pay them the money. Right? And they could just decide. So I'm going to give them a tender, whatever the tender is, they got to figure out they're going to pay the carrier and make their money from that tender. I mean, there's no wiggle room. Most shippers don't provide a wiggle room. Some do. Hey, Mr. Shipper, I got trucks for you, but instead of 5,000, I can work with 6. 6 is probably a little bit better. 6,000. We can move those like this with 6. So they may be willing to go up an extra $1,000 to move those 40. Remember those 40 shipments we were discussing earlier? They may be able to go up $1,000 per shipment in order to move those 40 shipments in that month. Extra $1,000. We got the 40 trucks, but what they want for it and what we can make around it out of the two is 6,000 works, or even 5,500 works a little bit better than 5,000. So an extra 500 on top of that would be nice. So now you can give more to the carrier. You can give the carrier 5,000. If the target rate was 4,100, you give them 5,000. They're going to jump at that. You still make your 500 off of that because now instead of 5,000 load tender, you got a 5,500. But the market still dictates that the carrier run that lane for 4,100. So that's still your target rate. Your max payout still may be 45. And then your shipper pay is going to be 5,500 instead of 5,000, right? And also, guys, never tell the shipper what you're paying the carrier and never let the carrier know what the shipper pays you, right? Keep the two mutually exclusive of each other, right? Because if the carrier knows what a shipper is paying you, the broker, guess what they're going to do? They're going to ask for more money. And if the shipper knows what you're paying the carrier, guess what they're going to do? They're going to try to lowball you. They're going to ask for more money or take more money back. So keep the two mutually exclusive from one another. Keep them both ambiguous of each other, right? And you just play the middle, right? It's just good business practice. You don't want to let the carrier know what the broker pays you, nor do you want to let the shipper know what you're giving the carrier to move that freight. Just let them know it's a competitive rate. It's within your tender amount, and it's a competitive margin. It's a competitive rate. That's it. That's the answer you give the shipper, right? The answer you give the carrier is no answer. You don't have to tell them anything. As long as they agree to what you offer them and it's a competitive market rate, what the market dictates, then yes. Will the shipper ever ask? I doubt it. The shipper will be satisfied if you and that shipper agree and accept that tender. They can care less at that point because this is what they agreed to. This is probably a good deal for them, or they're thinking it is. I give it to you for 5,000. If you accept it, then good luck moving it, right? Because shipper knows that they can look at the market too. So can you talk a little bit about spot rates versus contract rates? What is the spread between the contract and the spot? Very good question. Mac Rose LLC. So a spot market rate, a contract rate is a direct contract between you and, let's say, or not you, the broker, but a trucking company and a direct customer. Your trucking company signs a contract with a direct customer for a specific term, let's say a year or two, to run their freight. That's a contract, almost, you can even say dedicated rates, right? Contract, because you signed a contract, contracted rates. And whatever that amount is that you signed for, $3 a mile, $4 a mile for that shipper for 2 years, running these lanes for 2 years. That is a contract rate. Spot market rates is when shippers or brokers or shippers and brokers go to trucking companies with loads, and those companies reject those loads. They have no choice but to put them on the load boards, the spot market load boards. Tender rejected freight usually gets posted on load boards by brokers and or shippers. That is the difference. Okay. Tender rejected freight or shipments that gets rejected by trucking companies usually are put on the spot market load boards. Load board freight that you see on load boards, those are spot market tender rejected freight, tender rejected loads. Okay. They're still good rates. This particular trucking company just rejected it. That was close to that shipper or that broker's facility. They just rejected it. So either out of greed or they just thought it wasn't a good rate. So, okay, guys. All the questions answered? Good information?
I have a question about your seminar on Thursday, is it?
Yes, who's speaking? Who's it speaking?
James Davis.
Okay. How you doing, Mr. Davis? You are a freight broker student?
No, I'm actually a broker. I'm fully vested in it. I just need some customers.
I'm saying, you're not enrolled in one of our courses, you're just a guest tuning in here.
Oh no, I'm enrolled. I should be.
Okay. I'm just all right.
Yeah.
So the load board seminar, the load board mastery seminar.
Okay.
That is targeted for those people who want to learn the ins and outs of a load board very specifically. It was mainly geared towards our dispatching YouTube channel members who are not students, because students in the dispatching training, they get load board training. They won't get it as intense as we're going to do it this Thursday, because we do other things in the training. We can't just focus on load boards. We got to focus on getting them to the point where they need the load board, getting a carrier, so on and so forth. As far as the broker, the same thing. Those in the broker class, we can go over load boards in the broker class, but if you want to attend that, that is something about one of my partner dispatching companies and I are going to go over Thursday with our attendees in that class. It is a price point to that. We go into detail. She's gonna be finding a load for her live carrier for Monday. So actually, and the reason why it's Thursday between 2 and 4, because that is a time where she can literally call a broker and speak to them about a particular load, so that the attendees can actually hear the conversation, right? So, and post that load or book that load and the process of that. So it's mainly geared to, now we can do that on the broker side as well, because brokers, you guys need load boards too, where you can post a load or search for trucks for your brokerage. If you are not asset-based and you got tenders and loads from a shipper, you need to post those. If you don't have a network already that you can reach out to by phone or email, then you got to rely on the load boards. And you got to post those loads on the load boards with your contact information, the details of the loads, so that it can entice carriers to call you. So it can apply to brokers as well.
Okay, well, I'll sign up for it. I'll sign up for it also, because the more I know, the better, right?
Of course, the more knowledge, the more information you have, of course, you want to put that in your arsenal and have it for you. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is it too late to sign up? No, it's not, Zanaya, and it's on the website. I can put the link. See, I didn't realize. I guess I should have realized, because Chancellor told me too, which is the instructor for She did Legacy Dispatch. She said, yeah, this can apply to brokers as well. I was just thinking mainly of specifically the dispatchers, but I guess it could apply to the brokers as well. This Thursday, the 26th, from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, myself, I'll be moderating it. Chasa Donald, who is one of our students' wife, Darren Donald with One Plus Logistics and Evans Transport, who is a broker. He's not even coming to class anymore because he's so busy brokering, right? But she has a company, a dispatching company called Legacy Dispatchers, right? And we have teamed up. This is the video for. This is the link. This is the page. And so yeah, and she'll be doing it in real time. And we'll go over load boards. We have several load boards we'll show you. We'll show you the user experience of it, how to navigate it, the features of a load board, what is a load board, what is its purpose, and how to use it. And then when you find a load, we'll actually navigate with examples, allow questions, because we have we've got about 7 people in there now, which is good, because we want to start small, to kind of gauge and decide if this is going to be a monthly or a quarterly thing to help people with. So we're going to go through that very in grave details about the features of a load board and show you how to load, plan, and strategize, and, from a dispatching side. And then we can apply those load board skills from a broker side too, because I have a corporate DAT login with my partner brokers that I deal with, Agility, that I have access to, that I can give you a broker's perspective as well and go into detail about that, posting loads, searching for trucks, and route planning, right? What's called route planning, right? So there's different techniques in that as well. So, okay.
Sounds like an awesome class. I think I can get a lot out of it. And, I like what you do, Charles. So as much as you can put out there that can give us, more tidbits and everything, it's worth the money, man. You really, you turn over some millionaires. You probably already have done on many already,
Yeah, I'm going to have a retreat. So I'm getting a commercial. I'm leasing a commercial office space, 1,907 square feet, 4 offices and 1 large conference room. If I can look it up on Google, I doubt if it shows you the building. See here, that is the address. There it is right there. Oh, okay, it did show it. Okay, good. So here's the building I'll be leasing, Century Professional Building. Right here, can I blow this up a little bit? I'll be at 21A. There's more office space over here. The top floor is 1,907 square feet. This is the conference room, the large conference room. This is going to be my office. It's huge. And there's 3 other offices more inward that I'll be leasing. There's a break room. There's a phone and service room for internet and stuff like that. And then there's another room. I got the blueprints. Yeah, right here. Okay, I'm looking at it. So office 1, 2, 3, 4, conference room, break room, reception area, and phone and service. So my camera's still on. I don't know if my camera's still on. I can show it to you guys a little bit. Yeah. So that is the floor plan of the lease contract for this. So, and then I'll have, when I start having retreats and having live trainings in person where people can fly in, get a hotel for a weekend, we can hang out after the trainings, go get something to eat, go bowling, whatever after training, just relax, open up, especially during the summertime. You guys can go kick your feet off on the beach on the Atlantic Ocean or whatever. So we'll start putting together those things and having meetings up here and things of that nature. So 2023 is coming together a little bit. Then I get to meet you guys face to face for those who fly in. I may have establish a relationship with the airlines if we're going to do this long term in different time frames each year or each quarter or each semi-year, every twice a year, that they give us deals for package rates for people to come in, get hotel reservations for a 1 package deal, and then wrap the trainings up into that as well. So yes, Janai, you are local. Yeah, this is in Western Branch for you, Janai, because you know the area, right? So Western Branch is Taylor Road and Western Branch Boulevard. There's a, you know, that McDonald's right there is directly behind that McDonald's, Taylor Road and Western Branch, right there. So once I get it up, I sign them. The lease is good. It starts March 1st. So I'm going to be bringing in office furniture, putting in monitors, office desks. I got a vending machine business, so I'm going to put a vending machine in there. So, you know, and then we're going to have live trainings there on the screens. So instead of being in my home office, which is right here, I'll probably be broadcasting and simulcasting from there with students in the class at the same time, you on the Zoom, so we kind of kill two birds with one stone, right? So that will come too. And I definitely need some help doing that because I don't know anything about office. The rent is $23, almost $2,400 a month. So for the first year, it's a 3-year minimum, $2,400 a month. 3% increase each year. So it's 23, 53, 24 something, and almost 24, 50 the third year. So, and I can renew. So yeah. And then I'll leverage it for other corporate meetings because other companies are in the area, they want to use the space, so I can rent it out to them as well. But my goal is to have it the Exodus University, because my goal, we have an organization in this area called Workforce Development Opportunity Inc. Janai, you may have heard of them. I'm trying to be a training provider on their curriculum for people to select Exodus University dispatch training or freight broker training as an option. There's already truck driving, barbering, and all these other courses, HVAC and stuff like that. I want to put transportation as there, and they can physically come. That's one of the reasons I'm getting the office space. So when I put together the plan and present it to them, they can come out and assess the location and add me as a training provider to their curriculum, where I get state funding for students coming in and getting dispatching and freight broker training, and maybe even trucking training too. So that is my goal. That's why I got the space first and then put all the other stuff together. So, but 2023, here we come. So, all right. But, all right, guys, any other questions? I'm proud of you guys too. We're doing it together. I couldn't do it without you guys. Everything that I'm doing, I could not have done it without you guys. You guys don't know how much you guys mean to this concept that I have going on right now as far as the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, how much the time and sweat that we've poured, my wife and I, into giving back the knowledge and the information to you guys. Because every time I get a call, people say that people don't want to give up the information, as much information as you do, and how often you do. And I hear that a lot. So I'm like, okay, that's crazy. Oh, Barry got the AT. Hey, this your service, Barry? This is your service, your business? We need to talk. We definitely need to talk. So, ATM machine, okay. Yes, call me Friday. We need to have that conversation. Barry, are you one of our students? Are you enrolled in the freight broker training? Okay, cool. Yeah. So, so it's all about also networking. So inter networking, not just freight broker, but other business ideas as well, guys. 2023, you wanna have different streams. And I know everybody has an entrepreneurial mindset. So you want to have different streams of income. You don't want to limit yourself, right? So, you know, just like what Barry posted this information, like an ATM machine, I have a vending business. We have like vending machines that make like on average about 1,000 a week per vending machine. You got like 15 vending machines. So that's 15,000 a week from a vending machine. One vending machine, 1,000 a week. So that's, and you got 15 of those. So that's 15,000 a week. So 1,000 a week, 4,000 a month for one vending machine, and you got 15 of those. So now you can do the numbers, right? And they're combo machines, right? Combination vending machines, which means they have snacks and drinks at the same time, and they have the digital swipe where you can swipe the cards and it goes to your business account. you still have the option to put cash and coin in there too, right? So I've done my research on that too. And it's minimal investment. One brand new combo machine with those capabilities is about $5,000. You're going to make that in the first month if you keep good products in there. You get a Costco or a Sam's Club business account, and now you have leverage to go get the products and put it in the vending machine. Come on, man, right? Business. So we just different streams of income. Just think about it. So,
Mr. Charles?
Sir, Fischel.
Yes, yeah, I joined a little bit late because I was all the way driving. So I do have a question of Sir Charles about starting that business. Is there any specific manpower that we need? I mean, technical that I need in order to start, or just I can do it by myself?
Which business are you referring to? The brokering business?
About the brokerage, freight brokerage.
Yeah. So, because we got to the end of the training. We're talking about other businesses now, but freight brokering, you can start it. You can start it by yourself, but at some point, as you get more shippers, and you need more help managing those shipments and moving those and managing those trucks and onboarding them to your brokerage, you may want to consider agents, freight broker agents, to source other shippers and to manage those accounts. Because as a freight broker agent, every freight broker agent you have, every account they get, they manage that account, and you just pay them a certain commission for that. But to answer your question, just starting out, you can do it by yourself. You can do it yourself. You'll have that aha moment where you'll say, "Hey, I need to scale my business. I need some help. I can't do these 5 shippers by myself. I'm going to need some help." Right? And you'll know what that is, because if you have a certain process you do for one shipper, right? You have a certain workflow that you have for one shipper. You know what you do with the paperwork. You know how to source the trucks for the shipments, right? For one shipper, right? If you get a second shipper and a third shipper, and that same process becomes overwhelming over time, it is at that point you would need to decide to bring on some help. You see?
Okay. No. Okay. That's understood. Because the reason why I asked that question is because I do have friends, like family members, like siblings. Just when I talk to them about the freight brokerage training, and just say something about just nobody accepts it. So I was asking myself, I don't know if I can do it by myself. So I'm glad you explained that to me. So
there's several words in the English language that I don't like that exist. Is I can't and I don't know, right? The phrases actually. I can't.
Oh no, the negative words. I agree with you. I know I use it, but I agree with you.
Right.
Okay.
So if you can't, well, there's certain networks you can get with people that you want to surround yourself with, people that do know, or people that can get you the information. And the I can part is, the only thing that I can guarantee you, if you can't do something or if you don't do something, right? Because if you don't do something, the only thing I can guarantee you is that you're gonna fail, right? If you don't do something.
If I don't try anything, for sure.
If you don't try anything, you're gonna fail. If you don't try it, right? So try it, make the mistakes, because even in mistakes, there are life lessons in the mistakes, right? Because you learn what not to do the next time. So there's life lessons in the mistakes, right? There's a saying that I don't know if you know this actor. His name is Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I do know that guy.
If you heard of him, Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I do know him. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people say I look like him. I don't know. I can't see the resemblance. But anyway, he said, there's an expression people say, you don't want to fall back on something. I don't want to fall back. I want to fall forward, right? Because at least I know what I'm seeing when I'm falling forward. Falling backwards, you don't know. Right? Don't fall back, fall forward. Fail forward. Fail big and fail forward, because you're going to learn from that. Now, I'm not encouraging you to fail.
Yeah, I heard the same thing from Charles Brown too.
Yeah.
He was, yeah, I heard, I watched his motivational videos, and yeah, you're right.
Right. So because
he was that guy.
most millionaires and most entrepreneurs like the Mark Cubans and the Zuckerbergs and all, and the Steve Jobs and the Buffetts and all these other ones have made, they've gotten to where they are stepping over their mistakes. You see what I'm saying?
You're right. Yeah.
It took Edison almost 1,000 tries before he got the filament from someone else. He stole his patent, but he got the filament from this person to produce the light bulb. Right? So,
yeah.
And everybody knows the name Thomas Edison.
Yes,
right?
I do know him. Yep.
What everybody don't know is the name Garrett Morgan, who made the filament to produce that light bulb, right? But didn't get a patent. Edison got the patent, so that's why he got the credit. So,
okay.
But
that's why
the point is the mistakes, learning from the mistakes, right? So, what is the percentage? Someone's asking the question. What is the percentages you pay the freight agent, the freight broker agent? How does that work? So, if it's a brand new freight broker agent and you have to train them under your brokerage and they have no experience, then you give them the base 50-50 split. 50% of the profit from a load goes to you, your brokerage, and 50% goes to the freight agent. If they come in with what's called a book of business or some experience, and they come in with some shippers, a book of business is a shipper. So if a freight broker agent comes in with a shipper and they know the process, then you give them either 60-40 or 70-30. 70 or 60 goes to the agent, and the 40 or the 30 goes to the freight brokerage, because the agent is the one who's managing the account or the shipper.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how that works.
Okay. Right? Thank you very much for help.
You're welcome. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Anything else? It is after 8. We've ran our time course. I was talking to a SCORE mentor for the first time about becoming a freight broker. His specialty is trucking, freight forwarding, business sales, etc. His suggestion to me was, because of my age, it's a lot of work, and I'm too old to even start learning about becoming a freight broker. Do not let that discourage you. If you feel you can do it, then go for it. I know some brokers, I know some agents who are older than that, who are older than you, 60. So age is just a number. I knew a person who got their high school diploma at 90, age 9. I didn't know him personally. I'm saying I saw a piece on the television about this person, right? So getting a high school diploma at 90. Well, first of all, living to 90, number one, but then let alone studying enough, having enough brain aptitude at that age to get your high school. And I'm sorry, I take that back. It wasn't a high school diploma. It was an equivalency with just a GED, the general equivalency diploma, right? GED. So yeah, do not let anyone. Yeah, so Bridget's 60 and she has her freight brokerage. So yep. Yeah, always somebody just made a good point, Regina White. You know what negative energy or negative comments, you know what they are? That's fuel. I get a lot of fuel all the time. So let the negative energy and comments be your fuel to do what those people think you can't do. Right? That's fuel. Keep giving me this fuel. Either gas, petroleum, diesel, ethanol, whatever type of fuel it is. Give me all of. I need the fuel because you're gassing me up to drive to my destination. Naysayer, right? So keep providing me that fuel. Because I was getting low on fuel. I had the gas. I didn't have no money for gas. You just hooked me up with that fuel. So keep giving it to me. You see? You got one life, guys. Enjoy it. Live it to your fullest. All right? Yep. And whatever you put your mind to and you think that you can do, right? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Right? So if you think you can, you're right. Don't think you can't, but if you think you can, you're right. Oh, Bridget just got government certified. Look at that. Congratulations, Bridget. So now she's government certified. So now she qualifies to bid on government freight. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. Right? So, and she's 60, the same age as the person just said, that the person who gave them the negative energy. Cha-ching. So, what's the excuse? There is none. There is none. Okay? So, and then we're part of a network that is motivated to help one another. I need your guys' help just as much as you need mine. So what is that? That's teamwork. We're a team. Family, if you will. Right? So I have no ill intention whatsoever towards any one of you guys, any one of my students, any one of the members. I have no reason to. Even if I had a reason, I wouldn't express it because that's just not me. My job is I've been entrusted to give you guys content that's going to help you succeed. And that's what I take pride in doing. I take pride in giving you guys content that helps you succeed. And I try to put things in place to keep that going. Okay? So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. All right. And our next training, if it's canceled Friday, I'll let you know there's something that's coming up that I may have to address, but I will put it on the Facebook group if Friday's class is canceled this week, Friday. But I'm giving you a preview. It may be, so I'm just letting you know if it does, but something's coming up that I have to address. But I will put it in the Facebook group, the Freight Broker 101 members only group, okay? So, all right. But did I put my information in here, my email? And by now, you guys should know where to find me on the website under Contact Us. Me and my beautiful wife, Tasha, and our information. Me and my rock of Gibraltar. That's my rock right there. So that's the foundation. That's who I am right there. So, and this is the information. So if you notice, the man is standing behind the woman, or at least, well, we're technically side by side. So, but there you go. Okay. So that's how you contact me and my wife. And in the merch store, we added some new stuff to the merch store. So I'm always promoting the merch. We got merchandise, ELL. I think we added some hats in there too. We got to change it up a little bit. Truckers hats. They got a little hint of pink in there. But I don't know what they were, the company that we're using. We got to see if we can get that out of there, but that's fine. We'll see. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. You guys enjoy your evening. If you don't hear from me on the Facebook group about the cancellation Friday, we will see you Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? Have a good night.
Good night.